There we go. So, all right. The end of yesterday got confusing.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. That's okay. Let's kind of, before we hop into this, let's look at a few things in D2L. Week 3, that's where we are. Right there. Um, Again, just as a reminder, our assignment is due next week at on Tuesday. Right? So, what you should be turning in, if you are going to go back to week 2 to remember this, um, under the abridged assignment, effectively, it's a video something like this is what I'm expecting to see. Some of the things that can I make this one move? So some of the things that you're going to run into. Well, wait, before I can do that, we're going to talk about today some of the ways that we can make it look even better than that video. But some of the things I want you to think about, I kind of go back to this and reread it, is what is it I'm kind of looking for? What is it the aim of the project is, right? As you're working on something, sometimes it's very easy to sort of lose sight of where you're headed. So make sure we got lit scene, we got cameras, we got like a world, right? You're building a viewing experience for me. Thank you. And for anybody else you want to send it to. The size of this, like we're looking somewhere between 10 to 12 seconds, but it can be shorter than that. If I think right now my animation is like 200 frames, that's less than 10. That's closer to 7. The sort of the maximum size or maximum length I'm looking for is 10 to 12 seconds. So if yours happens to be 7, that's fine. If it's 2, probably a little too short. The frame size 1920 by 1080. That's HD 1080. And that's going to increase our render time, which we haven't really talked too much about render time just yet. That's because it's not been an issue. With Viewport 2.0, it's really not that much of an issue to get a fast render out of it. But as we saw last class period, it's much harder to get a good-looking render out of it. Right? And I was hitting snags that I was not familiar with. You would hit a completely different set of issues when you're using Viewport 2.0. What I'd like to so what I'm hoping to encourage you to do is what we're going to focus on today, which is try to use Arnold as your render engine. Now again, how this is graded, this is the thing to kind of take a minute and look at. Actually, if we go to the next page, it's got the entire rubric here where you can look at it. I'm going to look at the modeling. I'm going to look at the lighting and rendering, the rigging. I can kind of tell when stuff feels like it's not connected together in the right way. Animation, and then the overall presentation. How's all of this fitting together, right? If you did excellent at all of that, it's 5, 5, 5, 5, 5 down the line there. You have 25 points. If you did poorly on one, then it might be like 5, 5, 2, 2, 5, 5, right? So don't expect all 5s in this. Like when I'm putting in a number in this, it's so you can see which areas you need to improve in, right? If let's say that what you turn in is a bridge with a camera movement, but there are no cars in it at all, right? Well, your modeling is going to get a hit. Your animation is probably going to get a 0, right? Because there's nothing animated in there. Maybe 1 for the camera, right? So this is actually not, despite what a lot of people want to think, this is not like it is time to judge you, right? That is not what this is for, right? What this is about is helping you understand where you need to grow, particularly in this project, right? Helping you be able to like look at this and say, oh, okay, my modeling apparently wasn't doing very well. So then you can go back and you can rework your modeling. The thing I'll remind you of, go back one more page here. That due date right there. Do it at the beginning of class, Tuesday, September 17th. That's next class period. Right? The next time we'll be in here. Everybody needs to turn something in. Okay? And I know that right now everybody's goal is to have something beautiful ready to turn in. But I guarantee somebody's project is going to catch on fire. Like, there will be at least one of you who come in on Tuesday, but it's usually closer to about 25% of you come in on Tuesday, like, in a mad panic. And you'll be like, I was awake all night, Maya wouldn't render, why is it not rendering? Deep breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth. That actually does work. As long as you turn something resembling this project in, even if you get 1 point on it, right? Even if you get 0 points on it, there was something in there, right? You can revise that as many times as you want until the very last day of class in this class. So the very end of the semester, like in December, right? December? It's too hot to be this, like, to just be one semester away from December. That's crazy. Okay, that's it. It's almost Christmas, y'all. So you can revise this as many times as you want, over and over and over again. So don't I inevitably Sunday or Monday morning, or Monday or 3 a.m. before this project is due, right? I will get emails asking for an extension. The answer is a blanket no. If it's not in on time, then you can't revise it. You have to turn something in on that date. But then your extension is like December 7th, right? You can turn it in as many times as you want until whatever that is. December 7th or December 8th, I can't remember. So that is the extension. You have to turn something in. If I go in there to grade it and there's not something with your name on that folder, it's a 0 that remains unchanged until the end of the semester, okay? So you have to turn something in. I feel like I need to reiterate that as much as I can, as more of like a way of like playing this game of school, right? That's always a good practice. Like you have an English paper due, and you're like, it's 10 pages long, you wrote 7 pages, for God's sakes, just turn in that 7 pages, right? You'll get a C plus on it. But a C plus is still way better than a nothing, right? So that is sort of to encourage you that. Once you have something in, then it's just revision to make that thing perfect, right? And that's actually a good life lesson too. Like everything is just revision after revision away from being awesome, right? Yes, George.
Oh, how high can we get a grade after the revision?
It tops out at 100 unless it's got some extra credit options. There are some. I'll have to look at that. Sometimes I offer a few extra credit opportunities in this class that require you to do something kind of outside of class time. Sometimes I'll let y'all or encourage you all to go to the portfolio reviews. That'll be about halfway through the semester and at the end of the semester, so you can see what what your work is going to look like by the time you get ready to graduate. But yeah, otherwise it'll just go to the 25 points and sort of cap out there. So it's very interesting. Usually I see a lot of revisions coming in from people who already have an A. Like that's not a coincidence. It's like the people who are going to revise it are those people who are putting a lot of work into this, right? And that's fine. Like if you already have an A and you're like, this is not going to affect my grade any at all, but I still want to make it better. Heck yeah, like more power to you. That is an awesome way to look at life. So I just wanted to reiterate this because I know when we hit that rendering phase of this, some people's projects are going to have some issues with it, right? And I want to calm down any panic attacks that are going to result from that beforehand. There is just as long as we can get something in there. Maybe you're turning in a play blast, maybe you're turning in a piece that is half rendered and then the other half is a play blast. I just need to be able to see something that we can grade so you can continue to revise that. Okay, so enough harping on that. Let's go ahead and look at Maya. Okay, so I'm going to open up my scene here in a minute. Actually, let's go ahead and open it up now. So I'll go to Set Project, and my project is on my computer. Scratch, and set that. File, open scene. And you saw from class the other day. This was roughly what we were getting. Not great, but could still use some work, right? So this is this is an acceptable first pass on this. There's obviously a lot of areas where I can improve on this, though. Now, a couple things that are going to happen when it comes time to render this. We want to make a whole image sequence of this, right? Why an image sequence and not a movie?
If the render fails, you can like fix it with that whole thing.
Right. So we have one. Let me go and turn off this light so you can see that a little bit better. My water bottle's leaking. That's uncool. So so we have individual frames of animation, and as we've talked about it, like that's all animation is. That's all video is. It's just individual images that are flashing at your screen really fast, right? And so you're inevitably going to have some issues, right? Maybe it's a technical issue where Maya messes up halfway through the render and one of your frames renders incorrectly. That happens sometimes. Maybe it's a power surge and Maya crashes halfway through. So if that happens, and you're halfway through this render, like let's say in these 200 frames, let's say I've rendered up to frame 120, and the electricity shuts off and then shuts back on or comes back on, I could just start rendering on frame 120 again and finish out all of that. And then I just have a folder full of images, which to most people is useless. Like you can't upload a folder full of images to YouTube, right? So I'm going to show you how to compile those in a little while here. But before I go through, no, actually, yeah, let's go ahead and do it with Arnold instead. So before we do all that, though, let's go ahead and look at what we're getting out of here. If I hit render, if I hit my little clapboard here to see my render, this is what I'm getting out of there. And of course, this is just one image. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do a render sequence of this. So this is just one image. I need all my other images for this to feel complete, right? So the way I'm going to do that is if I go to this little drop-down menu here and choose rendering, you'll see under render, I have this option for batch render. Now, if I hit that, it will render out a sequence of images. But there's a lot of settings that I need to make sure are right first. So if I just hit that now, actually all it's going to do is render out one image. And it's going to save it in my images folder. Well, that's cool, but I need 120 of them, or 200 of them. So before I click that batch render, I'm going to go over here to my render settings. Remember this? It's the little clapboard with the cog in front of it. Pretty much anytime there's a cog in a software program, that means settings. Okay. Maya Hardware 2.0 is what we have this set to render with. Now, if I wanted to change this, the first thing I would change right here, I could change it to Arnold, I could change it to Maya Vector. But this is going to change which render engine we're using. There's also Maya Software, which will give us not a terrible render, but not a great render either. You'll also notice with Maya Software, we're getting stuff like our car isn't smoothed anymore. So Maya Software doesn't recognize that smooth mesh preview that we had before. My shadows are maybe a little better, but there's a lot of other issues in this. So I'll go ahead and close that. So I'll go back to Hardware 2.0. Now, remember when we set our project? I wish I had one of those laser pointers. You remember when we set our project earlier? I set it to, it's my E drive, it's another local drive here, right? And I set it to my bridge folder. Well, this up here at the very top tells me where it's going to put my images. And you'll see the path it's going to put them in is E drive, Greg, bridge, images. If I go look in my E drive, Greg, bridge, you'll see there's already an images folder in there. And what's going to happen when I start rendering is it's just going to start plopping images in this folder. It's going to number them in a sequence. Now, the other thing to notice here is my file name. And you'll see that what it's saying is it's going to render Greg Marlowe-bridge reconstructed.0008.iff. Like, there are so many things wrong with that line that I don't even know where to start. So first, one image is not an image sequence, right? We need more than that. The other thing is, like, what is with the 0008 thing? Anybody know?
It's to say that you're on.
Yeah, it's what my file is named, right? 0008. So that means if the way Maya is going to keep track of this image sequence to be able to put it back together as a video is by numbering them. And since I already have a number in there, that's really going to make it confusing. Not only for me, but Maya may, or whatever program I'm trying to import this into later, is not going to know how to count that. Like, is this file number 8000 or what? So I'm going to change a lot of stuff down here that will start making that file name change. Okay? The first thing is I don't want this as an IFF. I'm going to go ahead and set mine as a PNG. Let's try that. So at least it's a file format type that I can recognize. An IFF is a Maya's image format. Nobody uses that anymore. No other programs recognize it. So if you render out to that, it's not like everything is lost. I can show you how to convert it, but usually it's just easier to change that. Now currently I'm changing it to PNG, which is very much like a JPEG. The only difference between a JPEG and a PNG is a PNG has an alpha channel, has the ability to have transparency. Right? And PNG is probably the more casual image format that we're moving toward in the world, but there are some problems with PNGs. And we'll talk about that a little bit later when we're rendering with Arnold. But one is the way that PNGs or JPEGs or any image you're used to recognizes color. Right? And the way it kind of creates a curve to recognize the range of color that is in an image. And so without going into that too much, PNG is not the ideal method to use for this. However, with Hardware 2.0, it's the best option we have. Once we go into Arnold, we're going to use another image format called an EXR. Okay? An EXR is very, very much superior in all regards in image formats. Right now, a PNG can have 3 color channels, red, green, and blue, and an alpha channel. That's 4 channels. Right? An EXR, I think, can have 99 channels. And each of those you can embed information into it so you can use that later, right? Like if you wanted a channel that just told you how far an object was away from you. So anyway, don't worry about all that yet, but later in lighting and rendering or even effects and compositing, that's going to become very important. The biggest reason we will eventually switch to EXR in Arnold is that an EXR image has much more color editing ability, right? Okay, so PNG for right now. Later we'll switch this to EXR. I'm going to change the name of my file as well to bridge render. Right? And you'll notice when I click off this, anywhere here, now the file name is bridgerender.png. However, again, that is still just one image, and it's just one image, it's not a video, right? I need this to be a full video sequence, or a full image sequence. And the reason this is not giving me a series of images there, like if I go down here and try to choose, you'll see it's grayed out, right? The frame range that I want to render, I can't change those numbers, right? This is probably in this part of the project. I get a lot of emails about this, so pay close attention on this part. Frame animation extension right now is set to single frame. Okay, I need to change that. I need it to be one of these down here that has ext at the end. Okay, so usually I use either name.number.extension or name_number extension. Let's use _number. Now when I do that, look what happens to my file name. Now it's bridge render _0001.png to bridge render _0010.png. Right? It's going to render an image sequence of those 10 files. And that means if I were to do a batch render right now, I would get 10 PNGs in my image folder, right? Now the reason it's going from 1 to 10, you'll see now my frame range is something I can edit. So it's going from frame 1 to frame 10. I'm going to change that to 200. And the last few things I want to make sure of, I want to make sure we're rendering the right camera. I am, CamZ. You can tell that because it's named down here. And I want to make sure that I have my image size set to HD 1080. Now, in case you didn't write all of that stuff down, that is absolutely okay. I wrote it down for you. So under our content section for week 3, you'll see these render settings images. This is pretty much exactly what we just changed it to there, right? Just looking at that to make sure that's correct. Yes. So you can always go back and look at that. All right. Let's go ahead and minimize this now. So if I want to go ahead and render this out and see how this is going to look, I can go to render. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and save this first because those render settings save with it. I'll do increment and save. And so now those render settings, if Maya crashes for some reason, I don't have to go change those again. But if I go to render, batch render, I want you to pay attention to what happens on this bottom line right here, where it says result right now. Watch what happens when I hit batch render. So the first thing's going to happen, I get this little pop-up. This will usually happen the first time you ever try to render. I go ahead and say allow access. And now look at what's happening there. Percentage of rendering done. Like we're already up to frame 25, 26, right? So using Hardware 2.0, I'm going to be able to render my entire scene what appears to be like 2 or 3 minutes. Okay? So remember that. We're going to save these images here in a minute and look at them. Well, yeah. So 2 to 3 minutes for my entire scene. However, as we saw, like it's not going to look any better than that right there. Right? That's as good as we're really getting out of it. There's a lot of little tricks we can do. We can really play around with the lighting more. I could do maybe multiple lights. I could do a light for each of my cars or something. I can do a lot of stuff in here that will really help it, but nothing that is going to make it photorealistic, right? Nothing that is going to Hardware 2.0 is only capable of so much stuff, like so much render quality. So I'm showing you this primarily for that what we had just talked about, right? If everything else fails, render out a Hardware 2.0 render, you have something to turn in, right? Everybody will have 2 minutes that they can render, right? Now you'll see that after doing that, it'll tell me render completed, see Maya render log.txt for information. And if I go to my bridge folder, look at all them images. Look at that. 200 of them. And if I double click on one, let's go ahead and open it up here. Photos. The first thing you'll notice is it's too dark. Like, what happened? The other thing is if I start using my arrows, you'll see I'm stepping through them one image at a time, and I'm getting an image for each of these renders, right? So that's cool. I am getting shadows now in this a little bit. They're not great shadows, but I'm getting them. Okay. So let's go ahead and close this. Talk about why. Actually, let's save these. Shift Control X to cut them. I'll create a new folder. I'll call this H2O too dark. But just in case, we could always fix those if we had to. Paste. Got them in there, right? Okay, let's do another render to see if we can fix that. So what's happening there is, remember when I was telling you that PNGs do not have the right range of color, right? So it's kind of hard to explain, but think of the blackest black in your image, like if you're looking for black, think of that as 0. Think of the whitest white in your image as 1, right? So all of your colors are crammed in there. All of your brightness levels, all of your hues, all of your saturations are crammed in there between 0 and 1, right? But the way we usually look at images, we usually want to see those colors that are in the middle, right? We want to see from like 0.7 to 0.3, right? Or 0.3 to 0.7. Like that's where most of the image actually takes place. So images compress all of that data using a curve that kind of trims out some of those whites and some of those blacks, right? So you get a wider range of those colors in between. And so what we're seeing is, when I open up that image, we're seeing that Maya didn't pay attention to that. Maya sort of rendered it in a way that we see a linear progression through there, to where we're seeing more of the whites and more of the blacks, right? And that's not what we're seeing in our viewport here. And it's also not what we're seeing when I hit render like this, right? That image is different than the images I'm getting out of the render. So if I want to fix that, this is kind of annoying, but the way I have to fix that is clicking this Apply Output Transform to Render. Okay? Now, what kind of sucks is I think this render now is going to be too bright. That's okay though. The render that's going to come out of our batch render is going to look like the one where I hadn't clicked that button, right? So go ahead and one more time, now that that's checked on, I will go ahead and do render, batch render, and we should start getting our results down here. If you want to see this in more detail, you can see how it's going through them really quickly. I can open up my script editor here, and you'll see it rendering through all of those images one at a time. So it's worth mentioning that little line while we're waiting for this to render out. This line gives you so much information. So does the script editor. Because if you ever do anything and that line turns red, red usually means what?
Bad.
Bad, right? Uh-oh. Stop what you're doing. It's red, right? Red is a warning. Red is like an error, right? So let's say you tried to extrude a face for some reason, and you hit Control E, and that line turns red. That means that extrude thing you just tried to do ran into an error, and it didn't work. Right? It didn't extrude that face. It may be because you didn't have a face selected, right? And that's a way of being like, wait, why isn't it extruding? Oh, that turned red. Let me go look at my script editor and see what it says. And it will give you some information about what the error was. Now, sometimes it'll turn yellow. Yellow is more of like, that didn't work exactly the way it was supposed to. It didn't not work, but there was some hiccup there. You may want to look at this. It's a warning more than anything. Okay, so just keep that in mind, that's what that line is usually showing us. So we're done. We're done with our render. That's so fast, right? It renders like in 2 minutes. Like, I hope you realize that that's fast. But you'll see that our render now is much more the right color. Okay, so that's our Hardware 2.0 render that worked okay. Control X. H2O. Good. Next. Okay. Let's go ahead. Now we've kind of looked at that. I'm going to go ahead and open up a second version of Maya so we can start talking about Arnold. Yes? Really weird. Ooh, I'm curious. Let's do it. Nice. Zoom back in. Keep zooming in, isn't it better?
I'm having issues. Because I kind of forgot.
When you're like reading, or are you just gonna put a circle around it?
So, this is weird. Yeah, if you zoom out far enough, it's got still kind of starts to do around the edges.
Trying to do that's why.
It's probably weird looking plane.
Yeah. Oh, no.
So if you get really far away from it, let's say this was like New York City, and you were trying to show
Even
you
if it's
high
like this is something I'm bringing.
I mean, you can.
if you get really far away from it, Maya's like, I'm just gonna stop rendering certain things.
As long as the animation is fire,
You can add it, start clipping stuff off as too far away.
I don't know.
It doesn't
So you
stay
get
up.
too close to stuff,
Okay, so where's your outline?
eyes, right? So it starts clipping and getting closer.
I don't know where it is.
You can actually
That's the funny
adjust
part.
it.
Like it's gone.
I think that's what's happening. It's also
I don't know how to open the outline.
putting things as a smart.
And-
There's a graphic.
This one?
Okay.
Or Windows?
Maya was in fact doing something weird, but it's all fixed now.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Second Maya is open.
I don't know what this is. Oh, okay,
Okay. So remember we were looking at that rubric earlier? And one of the categories that I was going to be grading was lighting and rendering?
Yeah.
Okay. You can get a good, I like saying okay. I feel like that's my starting point. Like that's how I clear my head. So, I use so a lot too. That criteria, like you can make a good looking render using hardware 2.0. It's just not easy. Right? You got to do all sorts of extra work on the lighting, the materials. We had a relatively decent looking render just with those 3 primitive objects, remember, in last class period. And that was coming out pretty good in hardware 2.0. My bridge right now is not looking the best in the world, and I would probably have to invest another hour or so worth of work into turning that into something that looks good, right? But if I did that, I would be able to render it in about 2 minutes and have an animation that looks pretty good. You are completely allowed to choose that option. But recognize that when I get to that category of lighting and rendering, my only thing I'm going to be considering is, does it look good? Right? So, the other option is to fight with Arnold a little bit, but really the fight is going to be that you just aren't familiar with Arnold. The other fight is going to be that Arnold is going to take much longer to render. Right? We just rendered in 2 minutes. I would estimate your render for this animation in Arnold to be between 4 to 16 hours.
16 hours?
Yes, depending on what you're doing. Yes.
Are we allowed to sleep in here?
Yes. What a lot of people do is they kick off a render and they like head home for a while and they run out and get some food. Bring a book. I could recommend some great books for you. Anybody read Old Man's War by John Scalzi? It's a great book. You can get through most of it. Right?
I just need to go get some pillows and blankets.
Yes.
Read Bleak House the whole time.
I have like 6 blankets in my room.
That's a good question. So how does rendering it in Arnold make anything better? I will show you. We're just going to go ahead and create a scene right now because I can have a scene that looks photorealistic in less than a minute. Right? Yes.
Are we able to render it off of our own computers?
Yes. Well, okay. So if you're rendering on Arnold at home on your own computer, you're probably going to get a watermark. It'll when it renders through Arnold there, it's going to like say Arnold across the image several times. I won't count off if you use that and you get that watermark. But probably what you'll want to do is eventually, like after you get some feedback and stuff, eventually you'll want to re-render it on one of these machines where you won't get the watermark as much. And that'll be better for midpoint when you're in the midpoint class and stuff like that. So Arnold by default is it's called a physically based rendering, right? So it is using the way light really works to create your render. And so if you brought a light into a dark room and set it up, Maya is going to be using the same calculations to figure that out in the same way that the light really works, right? Which means all I have to do is put a light in a room and Maya starts giving me something that looks pretty good with Arnold. So I'm going to go ahead and create, again, sphere, cube, cylinder, the trifecta. There's a plane in here. Okay, so we got this. I'll hide my thing here. So the first thing to know about Arnold is you can render the same way we had before just by clicking that little clapboard, and you can use that render view if you would like. However, there's a better one. So I'm going to go ahead and close that down, and I'm going to go up here to the Arnold menu, and I'm going to choose this Open Arnold Render View. And what I'm going to get is Arnold's version of the render view. Now, I'll show you why this is beneficial here in a minute. Right now, I don't see anything. Right? So I'm going to go ahead and close this down, and I'm going to put a light in here. Now, one of the other caveats with using Arnold is you want to, whenever you can, use one of Arnold's lights. We can use a directional light, but some of the controls on the directional light won't actually affect our scene the way it did in Hardware 2.0. We'll have to go into some other settings in there. So for right now, let's just use one of the Arnold lights. So if I go to Arnold lights, I'm going to start with an area light. Actually, I'll be honest with you. There's only two lights in here that I really ever use. And that's the area light and the sky dome light. I will also use a directional light from the standard lights because you can kind of do some stuff with that as well. But let's just use an area light. So you'll see what I get with my area light is a sort of a plane, right? And that plane, if I rotate it around here, you'll see it has an arrow or a line sticking out of it. So what you would think of this as is like one of these lights above us up here, right? A fluorescent light box, right? And that whole thing is casting light in the direction of downward, right? So imagine if I could take one of those out and just walk it around and like point it and stuff. That's what this area light is. Now that's important because that's different than like a pin light, right? Or a flashlight. A flashlight is a smaller area of light that is casting out. And if you shine a flashlight on something, you get pretty hard shadows, right? But if I had that light up there and I was shining it on my water bottle, there's light coming from a wide range of area. And so it's going to give you softer shadows. So the size of this is going, like this plane is going to cast light from whatever size it is. So I have that in there. I've kind of got it pointed at the balls, the objects. I'm going to go ahead and scoot this back just a little bit. I'll go ahead and open up that render view again. Now again, this isn't going to start doing anything until I hit this little play button right here. So when I hit that, wow, right? Can't see anything, can you? So it's still kind of dark, but you can start to see a little bit of what we got going on there. I'm just going to leave that play button clicked on, because this is why I actually like this. If I have my light selected and I go to my attribute editor for that light, you'll see I have intensity and exposure. I'm just going to start turning my exposure up. And as I do, I start getting more lighting in here, right? So one light set to 5, and I'm getting that result. Now, something I sometimes do is I'll just uncheck normalize, and then I sometimes if your scene is really big, you have to crank that exposure up really high before it starts to be able to see it. That's fake. Okay, so I'm getting something that's looking okay. I'm going to sort of mount this right there so I can see them both. Right? So we can kind of see what our render is doing as I zoom in. So the other thing to look at is this is updating in real time. Right? As I zoom in here, Maya is making the changes to my render that I've made to my scene. Right? If I turn my lights exposure up to 5 again, Maya updates that. Let's do like 4.5. That feels a little bit better, right? Now, some of the things to recognize that are happening in this render, I'm getting sort of softer shadows here and here, right? Because of the width of that. The other thing to notice is light is kind of bouncing off of things to illuminate this. And I'll show you this a little bit more here in a minute. But one of the things to notice is like right around here, around the edge of this ball, see how it's kind of got a little bit of a highlight there, or like a little bit of an illuminated area? Right? That's because light is bouncing off of the floor and back up onto the ball. Okay? So the other thing to recognize is to render this one frame the way it looks right now, I look down here on the bottom, it's taken 4 seconds. Okay? Well, that doesn't sound that bad, right? 4 seconds times 200, that's reasonable. Let's go and break out a calculator here to see what that would be. So we got 200 frames times 4 seconds, that's 800 seconds. So if I divide that by 60, that's only 13 minutes. Right? I could render my entire shot in 13 minutes. All I have is one light in here. My samples are turned down, and so that's why we're getting a lot of this, like, see, if you can kind of see this a little grainy in here. It's a little, like, speckly. And so all of those things are factoring into the quality of this render. Also, the only thing we're rendering is a gray material on everything. So let me show you some of the other reasons we maybe would want to use Maya, and we'll also do some math on that periodically to see how it improves. So if I wanted to turn my samples up on my light here, I have it right now set to 1 sample. That means it's going to sort of calculate how that light bounces around the room, multiplied by 1. Right? It's like it's got a base number of these like little points out there. It's doing it one time, right? If I turn that number up, my render will get better, but my speed will get slower. So if I turn this up to, let's say, 5, right, my render will get a lot better. And you'll start to see, as the render clears up, I still have one more pass to go on this, these grainy shadows will start to become much more smooth, and like the transition will be much better. Yeah, so that's a little bit better. But now I'm up to 15 seconds of render. Right? So you can see how this starts to get expensive in terms of time. A little bit later in class, when we're in the second project, I'll go through some stuff to show you how to optimize this a little bit. But this samples is one of the ways, right? That samples being up to 5, like, sometimes you have to break out the calculator, do the math, and be like, class is in 3 hours. I can't have samples at 5. I have to put that down to 3. Is that good enough? Right? Is that going to look good enough if I turn that down to 3? Yes.
What would you recommend the number we should keep it at if we had like the day to do it?
So I would keep it between some of your lights you may only need to leave them set at 1. It's really hard to tell. It depends on the scene. It depends on how close your light is. Usually, my starting point is somewhere between 3 and 5.
Okay.
You crank it up to 10, and it's going to be beautiful, but it's going to take forever. Now, the other thing I'll point out to you is that when I switched to Arnold, actually, it wasn't when I switched to Arnold because I created a new scene, right? So one of the things to recognize is this thing right next to our time. So I'm down to 8 seconds now. That's good. So look at the frame size I'm rendering. It's 960 by 540. So I'm not rendering at HD 1080 anymore. It's because it's a new scene. I have to go to my render settings here and change my render settings to be HD 1080. So it got me way closer to it, right? But you can see from this little bar that it's going to take it a few minutes. Right? I'm not really sure what my number is going to be on this when we're done, but I'm not doing this to scare you. I'm doing this to tell you that I plan to have to invest some time in this, right? Each of these things are a job that is out there in the world, right? Lighting and rendering is one of them, and it's a job that pays really well. So if it were easy, why would anybody pay really well for you to do that job, right? Like part of the part that a lot of people don't like is the fact that it takes so long, right? That you have to be patient with it. That you're going to tweak around on this stuff forever trying to get the right image. And 34 seconds a frame now. We'll do 200 times 34 equals 6,800 frames. Divide that by 60. Wait, what now? Try that again. 200 times 34 divided by 60. Oh, that makes sense. And that's 113 minutes. So I divide that by 60 again. That's 1.8 hours. Right, so rendering my animation at this quality, at this size, is going to take me almost 2 hours, right? So again, yeah, it looks better. Does it look so much better that it's worth doing that? Well, I haven't done anything with my materials yet, right? So let's start adding some materials on here. No, it's gonna be cool. Let's kind of make something similar to what we made before. I'm gonna right-click on here. I'm gonna assign a new material. And remember, last class period we were using blends and Lamberts. Blends and Lamberts. We can still use those, but I don't recommend it. If you're using Arnold, Arnold has its own materials. They're going to be a little faster, but more importantly than that, they're going to give you way more control than a blend and a Lambert. And once you kind of understand their controls, it's easier for you to manipulate them too. They make more sense, right? So all the way down here at the bottom, you'll see Arnold. And if I click on that Arnold tab, or if I click on the shaders underneath Arnold, you'll see all of these shaders here, or all of these materials here. The one I'm looking for is AI Standard Surface. It's usually one of the longest ones on that list. AI for Arnold something. Standard, and that's one of the ways you can remember it. It's a standard material. This is Arnold's standard material for any surface you need to put it on. AI Standard Surface. I'm going to click that. And so I just applied this new AI Standard Surface material to our floor. Now, a couple things you'll may be able to see. We're getting some reflection there now. Right, so we're able to see some reflectivity in it. Let's try this. Let's try making the color of that floor. So, just looking at our shader here, we have base, and this is our base color or our base material for this material, right? And so I can have my main color for that material. Just like anything else, I could map in an image if I wanted to, or I could just choose a solid color. Right. Now you'll see why this is actually pretty impressive, is we're getting bounce light off of the floor up onto our ball. Now our ball has some blue light in it. You'll be able to see those reflections are in there a little nicer now, right? And so this is actually giving us some pretty nice results here, just with one light. Now I'm going to go ahead and map something in here again. I'll just click that map, and instead of putting an image in there, I'm going to do the checkerboard again. Again, I don't like being completely black or completely white on that, so I'll take it to something like this, and maybe with this I'll do some variation of blue. Right? Let's do like a light blue. There we go. I also want more repeats of that, so instead of 4 and 4, I'm going to do 15 and 15. Sure. That needs to be a little lighter. There we go, I like that. Okay. So now I just have something on my floor that I can kind of see a little bit better. Let's go back to our shader. And you'll see that we have specular. Specular again is any lights that we have on anything, like any reflections or gloss that we have on anything. So we have this index of refraction right there. We also have roughness. So I can change my roughness and make this thing much less rough, and my highlights, my reflections in there will become almost like a mirror, especially if I turn my index of refraction up higher. And so I'm starting to get a much glossier floor. If I turn my index of refraction down, it will become a literal mirror, right? Like, so get sort of somewhere in the middle of this, wherever you want it, right? Let's go ahead and turn it down to where it becomes a mirror, and I'll show you what happens when I adjust roughness. So there are things that are reflective and shiny, but you still can't see your reflection in it. Like this black on this stapler, I can see reflections in there that are pretty solid, pretty shiny. I just still can't see reflection of anything, and that's because it's kind of a rougher material. I don't know. So if I start playing with my roughness on this and turn that up, you'll start seeing that I'm still getting a reflection in there. It's just sort of blurring it out a little bit to make it look more like a more textured, like a micro texture on there, right? Turn that index of refraction down just a little bit more. I don't like it being that glossy. So maybe something like that, right? And now this is going to feel like a floor in an office somewhere, right, or like down a hallway. So again, we're getting a lot of control over this stuff. I'm going to show you some of these others in another object, right? So let's go ahead and select this sphere here. Now, one of the cool things about Arnold is if I wanted to select that sphere, I can also select it in my render view. So if I click the sphere there, it'll select it, or if I select the box there, it'll select it. So it kind of recognizes what your object is. So this sphere right now still has the Lambert 1 default material. I'm going to right-click, assign a new material, shader, AI standard surface. Now, just by default, we get this kind of glossy looking round surface. I will also point out, if you're doing this right now, if you're doing this along with me, you'll notice your computer got a little slower, right? Like clicking on stuff is not nearly as fast. That's because Maya is trying its best to render this thing at the same time. And it's not a GPU renderer, it's a software renderer. So Maya's having to use a lot of CPU power to render this. Okay, so our sphere with the default AI standard surface on it. Let's look at some of these other options. So I can still I can make it a color if I want to. Again, kind of interesting things happening here. I'm getting my reflection down here, but you'll notice I'm also getting some bounce light from that purple over here, just a little bit, right? Now, specular, again, if we adjust this, you'll start to see the difference, really hard versus sort of fading it out on the roughness. I'm going to go ahead and go with it pretty sharp, right? Pretty reflective. And the reason for that is because I'm going to scroll down here and play around with transmission. Now, currently, you'll see weight on transmission is set to 0. That's because sometimes you don't need some of these things, right? Like if I were rendering something that was like sand, I don't need any specular on my sand, right? And so in that case, if it were, I could go up here and just turn the weight of specular all the way off. If it's set to 1, that's all the way on. If it's set to 0, it's all the way off. Well, currently, transmission is set to all the way off. And you think you need that to change gears, right? Transmission is how is light being transmitted through this object. And currently, like, this remote, well, light is not being transmitted through this. I can't see through it, right? So transmission is sort of our version of transparency. It's not transparent because even though my glass is transparent, you all can still see it, right? If I took all this off and it was just the glass, I could hold it up and you can still see it. And that's because light is not a ghost, right? It didn't disappear. It's something that still exists because of all of its materials. You can still see it. Light is just able to pass through it. It's able to transmit through it, right? And so for transmission, I can turn that up and watch what starts to happen. I start getting sort of like a crystal ball look in here, right? So I can turn up my depth of this a little bit, play around with this, a whole bunch of stuff. So there's some really interesting things in here. Depth and scatter is going to change the way light bounces around inside of this. But I can't remember the details of how to use that. So this is a good time to mention that these materials have some presets, right? So we have our AI standard surface here material. If you go up to the top, you'll see presets. And if I click on that, you'll see that I have a whole lot of options in here, right? If I wanted to use deep water or copper, let's try copper. We'll replace this with copper. And now I get sort of an automatic copper. Now this, in most cases, is not going to give you the end answer. It's going to give you a good starting point, right? Even though that looks pretty good for copper, it's not very rusty. What if you're not very like tarnished, right? So if your copper needs to be a little tarnished, you still have some work to do on it, right? One of the presets in here is glass. So if I can replace that with glass, we'll see it's very close to what we had earlier. And if you look right here in this gray areas here, you'll see that that's actually the things behind it sort of passing through it. So this is a pretty thick piece of glass. There are some things we can play around with that as well if we wanted to, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. So there's a whole bunch of other stuff in here, including, let's select this thing and add a material to it. Assign new material, shader. I'll do another AI standard surface. So by default, it looks a little bit better. Notice over here, I can't see my sphere. Right? Light is transmitting through it. So that can be a little annoying. That when you have too much transmission on stuff, you can't really see it in your viewport very well. Okay, so back over here to this box, my AI standard surface 3. I'm going to try a different preset on this. Let's try, there's some interesting ones in here. Orange juice, plastic. Let's do, is there a skin one in here? There is a skin one. Let's replace it with skin. So, to be fair, you've never really seen a block of skin that thick. So there's some interesting things happening here with skin. If you, when you're walking around later today, when you're outside, sort of hold your hand up, and you'll notice that light kind of passes through your skin. You can't see through it, but light is kind of coming through it. It almost looks like it's glowing from the inside, right? That's called subsurface scattering. The light is going into your skin and sort of bouncing around inside of your blood and internal organs, and you're just seeing it sort of glow from the inside because of that. So lots of things have subsurface scattering. There's milk, all sorts of different things do. Well, that's one of our next few right here, subsurface. And you'll see that's turned all the way on. They've kind of adjusted that. Let's try a different preset on this. Let's do just ceramic, something simple, right? So, and I'm going to go ahead and change the color of the ceramic. A light blue there. So one of the things that we can have, if we scroll down here a little lower, is emission. So emission means it's casting out something, or it's putting out something, right? What could it possibly be putting out? Color and light, right? Like something that emits light is a light bulb, right? So you could have, like, you're in the dark, turn on your phone is emitting light, right? So you can make like an LED screen or something like that with this emission. And I can sort of start cranking up the weight of emission, and you'll see it's starting to glow, right? You can also change the color of that emission to be closer to that blue as well. And it's going to start feeling like it's glowing. In fact, this is going to cast a little bit of light. Now this is a way that you can have something feeling like it's glowing in your room and sort of that glow is affecting things. It's not going to work like a light. So one of the things you may be thinking of is like headlights on your car. Well, they do glow, but they also cast light forward. So you'll actually probably have to create a light and make them emissive if you wanted to make that look like a headlight. Right? And this last thing over here, let's get a new material on it. Kind of feel like I've assigned new materials. Standing surface. And let's just put something on there as a preset. Maybe brushed metal. Blood. Of course, everybody.
Have you tried the blood one?
Yeah, let's see what it looks like.
Do we need to replace all of our materials with Arnold material?
Well, what I would say is to render with, if you're wanting to render with Arnold, render your file, like render out an image with Arnold and see which materials are not looking the best in the world. If you're going to have to replace them anyway, replace them with the Arnold material. So you can render it. So I guess that does kind of look a little like blood. Let's just do clay.
So can you apply these to like the water and stuff?
You can. Actually, there's one in here called Deep Water, I think. So the problem with a preset that, and also recognize I can add like 50% of deep water if I wanted to. All it's really doing is changing the values in that AI standard material to be something that works, right? So these are a starting point. And I could change it to deep water. If I render it and it doesn't look like water, well, then it was a starting point. I have to keep working with it to make it look like water. So one of the things you would do is find some images of water, pull those up, and play around with that material until you get it to look like water. Okay, recognize that this is the result with one light, right? I can still do all of those things with lighting that I was doing previously, right? I can grab this light. I can add a little bit of color to it if I wanted to. In fact, there's sort of an automatic way to add some color to it. We can use color temperature. And if I click that, I can sort of pull this from one side to the other. Right now it's in the middle, but I can sort of pull it this way a little bit, and it'll warm up my lighting a little bit. It'll make it a little more red, a little more yellow, right? Or I can pull it this way, and it'll cool down my lighting a little bit. So I'm going to do one, sort of move it over here to the warm side, and then I'm going to make a duplicate of this light. Control D, everything's going to get much brighter. There we go. And then I'm going to move this over here and use it as a fill light. Kind of fill in for some of my shadows. I'm definitely going to turn that one down just a little bit. So my exposure, I'll put that down to something like 2. I can zoom in a little bit more. And so I can then take that over to the cooler side. And so I'm getting some pretty nice lighting on that. Right? So I'm going to let this continue to render for a while because I am really curious to see what my render time is on this render. I have a feeling we're going to be getting up there at least in the 30-45 second range, but we may be over a minute. Right? So if it's a minute to render, and we know it's 200 frames, that's 200 minutes, right? 120 minutes is 2 hours, so we're looking at about 3 hours here, right? So it's not miserable, right? Like that's something that's doable. We also have sort of a smaller number of objects in the scene, so it may be a little more manageable to try to render in Arnold, but it really is like, it's not unheard of for your render to take 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, right? And you have to kind of be careful what you're adding to this to manage that. But by doing that, you're going to get a really nice looking render, and that's worth remembering, right? This is playing around with this, learning this new thing. Eventually, you will be moving into Arnold anyway. Like eventually, you'll be using Arnold anyway. But I wanted to show you both to show you that rendering is not a one button answer. And like when we saw deep water over there, like I hate that they label them because it has a label. People think I clicked the button that says deep water. It should look like deep water. It's not looking like deep water, but I clicked the right button, so I should get an A on it, right? And like, it's really like, I don't know you clicked the deep water button, right? I can just, and the audience doesn't either, right? I'm sure they're Frozen too. Be like, well, I clicked all the right buttons. I'm sorry that Elsa isn't moving right, or I'm sorry that the audience doesn't care. They just want to fall into this immersive experience. And so that's sort of what you're doing here too, is you're building this immersive experience. Oh my goodness, it's still rendering. So let's get an idea of this one. So again, there's lots of things we've seen that we can do to reduce the render speed, right? Or to reduce the render length. One of them is I can turn down those samples a little bit. I'm not going to touch it right now. I want to see what it actually comes out to be. And I'll go ahead and show you. I really usually save this for later in some of the later classes. But there are also other areas where I can turn down some detail settings that will also speed up the render. So a couple of the things that are going to be slowing this down, I have subsurface scattering in here, I have transmission, and I have emission. And it's trying to calculate all of those things. So that's going to slow it down just a little bit. 2 minutes and 31 seconds. Okay. So if I'm rendering 200 frames of this, what is that? 2 minutes and 31 seconds. That's 60, 90. No. We're looking at about 150 seconds, right? So we'll say 150 times 200 equals 30,000 divided by 60 equals 500. So it's 500 minutes divided by 60 equals 8.3 hours. Right. So this render, if I were doing 200 frames of it, take about 8.5 hours. If you have a computer at home, it may not be as fast as these. So let's say it takes 10 hours. Set it off to render right before you go grab dinner.
But then it's also
Huh?
then you're also
Yeah, and then just take a nap. Go to sleep. Like, watch season 2 and 3 of Stranger Things, which is really good, by the way. Are y'all caught up on Stranger Things? You weren't a season 3 fan?
I mean, I've just not watched it.
Oh, okay. It seems like people are either like yay season 3 or boo season 3, and I understand the boo season 3, no spoilers or anything, but I don't think it's true. So I think 3 is good. Anyway, you could get through like a season of something, right? Like, or you can binge some stuff, or you could actually go to bed at a reasonable time, and wake up in the morning and say a little prayer and hope that it finished rendering, right? That nothing went wrong.
And it's gone.
And it's gone. Where did my files go? That is one that shows up. Where did my files go? Where should have they went?
Somewhere.
Into your project folder. So if you didn't set your project folder, I don't know.
Thank God.
Like, who knows where they went, right? The way you can find out, your render settings, and it will tell you right there. So I haven't set the project on this version of Maya because I just opened it up for this demo. And you'll see it's putting it in C:users, Marlowe G, documents, Maya project, default images, right? So I could dig around through there and find my renders in that location. The easiest way is just to set your project so you know where it's going. Another issue that happens, and oh man, it sucks, right, is that you will render for that 8 hours and then realize, oops, you were rendering the wrong camera. Right, you just rendered 200 frames of your side camera instead of your perspective camera, your camera one, right? Yeah, I know. After it starts rendering, let it render a frame or two, go look at one of them, right? Go open it up and look at it, right? I don't want to scare you off of rendering. I want to prepare you because it is probably in this class the thing that people underestimate the most, right? And that's like, it's really, I'm kind of like warning you up front, like allot some time between now and next class period to really work on that, right? Now, whatever you get, I can guarantee you, what you turn in on Tuesday, by the end of this semester, you would be able to make better, right? Like no matter how good it turns out, you're going to improve, right? You're going to get better at this every day. And so don't sweat that. Just get something to turn in, and that way you can look back at this, like maybe by the time you're working on your final, even if this was an A, you could look back at this and be like, you know, I could still make that better, right? Go for it. Like you will understand how to do this better every day as you move forward. So don't sweat it. We're just trying to hit that deadline, mainly so you kind of get the flavor of what digital media is like, which is there was going to be deadlines for big projects, and I am actually one of the. There are people who are much more harsh about turning in things that are unfinished, right? Than I am. So I'm trying to we kind of get in that mindset of like, okay, digital media is about these sort of sprints of work time where we're working really hard for a few weeks to turn in something big, right? And that's kind of different than maybe a lot of your other classes have been, where it's been like you study real hard the night before and you take a test, right? And that's where you write a paper, and if you are good with words, you could write a paper about anything, even if you don't know about it, right? That's really not what we are. We're more these project-based classes, and so it's also kind of getting you in the mindset of that deadline's coming. Let's learn how to manage our time. So time management is just a big lesson that you're constantly relearning. I'm constantly relearning. I have those like crunch periods too, where it's like, I got a project due tomorrow. I'm not anywhere near done. I have to work through like dinner tonight and get it finished, right? Everybody does that, but the better you get at managing it, the happier your life will be, right? So that's kind of where I'm trying to get you in the mindset of doing that. Any questions on any of this?
I mean, this is just for the render settings for Arnold.
Yeah.
But do you want us, because under image format it says compression and it says zip,
So
and then all these boxes.
that's a good question. So if you decide to render with Arnold, switch it to EXR instead of PNG. That one's really pretty important because otherwise it'll come out kind of flat. And then you'll notice that that thing that we had on the other one where we had to use transforms or whatever, that doesn't even exist anymore. So yeah, zip is fine on the compression type. So that is important. I'm not going to render out an image sequence out of Arnold just because it would take 8.5 hours, right? The last thing I will show you though is now that we have an image sequence, what do we do with it? Okay, I'm really nervous about this because we have to open up Premiere, and Premiere often crashes these computers. So save your file before you try this. I don't know. I've heard rumor that it's doing it a little bit. The Premiere will pretty much lock up the computer entirely. So what I want to do is I'm going to go to File, type in PRE, there it is, Adobe Premiere Pro, and I'm going to open it. But then I'm not going to do anything because as soon as I open it, I'm going to close it back down again. Right? Apparently, that's what we call a workaround for Adobe Premiere. It's absolutely stupid that has to be the way it works. But all right, we'll make it work. So Premiere's opening on my other screen. I got it open. Yay! I'm not going to do anything. Oh, really? Is it really locked it up anyway? Maybe it's locked it up anyway. Oh, wait, there we go. I had to hit that little skip button. So now Premiere's open. I'm just going to hit close. And then we're going to try it again. It's opening on the other screen, so we'll see. Now, how many of you have never used Premiere? Okay, that's not too many. So So you're going to be all right. Remember that there are walkthrough videos for all of this up on D2L if you forget how to do it. So once Premiere is open, Premiere is a video editing software. So this is if you're out there shooting a whole bunch of videos, you want to bring that together and mix it into one short film or something, right? All we're really going to use it for is converting an image sequence into a video. Now, you may not have Adobe at home. If you don't, there's a video up on D2L on using a different video editing software that's open source. I'm forgetting the name of it. I think it's, it is, oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that. All right, cool. Yeah, if you can get a copy of Adobe, that's cool. OpenShot. So OpenShot has a free open source video editor as well. Because all we're really going to use it for is compiling all of these videos, or all these images into a single video. So I'm going to hit New Project. I don't really care where it saves it, so I'll hit OK. And once it gets to this point, so a lot of empty boxes here, right? This is where your file, where you're going to import your files. This is where your videos are going to be laid out, right? Where you can sort of mix them all together. This is just sort of miscellaneous stuff. And over there where it says program, that's where you're going to be able to see your video playing back. So I'm going to right click right here and say import. I think you can just double click and it'll do it as well. And then I'm going to go find my images. They are in my project folder. So scratch, drag, bridge, images, H2O good. There they are. Now this throws people sometimes. They think they have to select all of the images. You don't. Look at the fact that they're numbered here. Let me put them in this order so you can see. Bridge render underscore 0001. And that's just a numbered sequence all the way through 200, right? So if I just click the first one, Premiere automatically can understand that this is a sequence of numbers. It knows how to count, right? So I just have to hit the image sequence button and hit open, and it will open all of the correctly numbered files afterwards as a video. So if I hit open, it looks like it just brings in one video, but watch as I scrub across through here. You can see my animation. Okay. So there's a couple of things it does, though. Remember when we talked about frame rate? Premiere brings this in at about 30 frames per second, 29.96, 97, I don't remember. But we were animating in Maya at 30. So that means it's going to be playing our video a little too fast. So the first thing we have to do, or the next thing we have to do, is interpret this footage as 24 frames per second. So if I right click on this, go to Modify, Interpret Footage, right here, assume this frame rate, see it's at 29.97, I'm just going to change that to 24, and hit OK. And so if you notice, the length of my video actually changed. It went from 6 seconds to 8 seconds. So this is going to be playing at the right speed now. Now this is just a video, but I don't actually have a sequence set up here to edit it in. But if I just drag this video over here, it will create a sequence and it will put my video in that sequence. And so now if I scrub my timeline, you'll be able to see it playing back up there. Now there's way more you can do with Premiere than just this. But this is a reasonable, this is all we're really wanting it to be, is this one thing, right? So from here, I've got this edited together in a video. I hit play and I can watch it. This is where you'll notice any hiccups. If you're using EXRs, it will play back really slow in Premiere. So what I want is I want to see the final video. I want to convert this into an MP4 with the H.264 codec. I know that was like, what now? MP4, that's an MPEG-4, is the file type. It's like an AVI or an MOV or a JPEG, right? It's an MP4. The codec, the compressor, the way all of these images are compressed so it's a reasonable size and not like 5 gigabytes, right, is called the H.264 codec. So you'll eventually just memorize that. But the way we do that is we go to File, Export, Media, and I just change format to H.264. H.264. Now it's automatically going to make an MP4 file for me. And it's going to use the H.264 codec. And this isn't the best compression settings, but it's close enough for us. Once you get into some of the higher level video classes, he'll talk to you a little bit more about that. But don't worry about all those details right now. Really, it's just setting this to H.264. Now the output name, this is always, like, I used to search everywhere. How do I change where I put this? I have to click these blue letters here for output name. And it'll bring this up. And I can make sure, I can go back to my images folder here, and I can just call this bridge render. I'll call this hardware 2.0. I'll hit save. And then all I have to do is hit export. And it's going to start compressing that into a video. Now there's one last thing. Double click on this. I'll open it up in VLC. Maybe. So there's one last thing. There's one last thing I'm going to want to do to this before I turn it in. Anybody guess what it is?
Name it with your name.
All right, because there's no student in this class named Bridge Render. Or is there? That'd be awesome. That'd be a good name. So I'm going to call this Greg Marleau Bridge Render. Yeah, you don't have to put hardware 2.0 on there if you don't want to. I just did that so I'll know what it is. And that way I'll know who to give the grade for this amazing looking project. Questions? Comments? Yes.
So you said the EXR files will play slowly in Premiere?
Yeah, just because each of them are going to be a little bit bigger, it'll just like refresh slower.
Oh,
So to be able to see it, just export it out and see like, did that look okay? It should export pretty quickly. It's just when you're scrubbing them, sometimes an EXR file can be like 20 megabytes or something like that. So those renders will be bigger too. What that means though is you have a little bit more control. I'm really kind of just getting people in the right habits, because then, like, let's say you render all of it out 8 hours, you're like, oh man, that's a little too dark, right? You can go into Premiere then and use some color correction, and you have more control over that with EXRs than you do with JPEGs. I could do it in here now with Premiere, and I'll show you what we start getting. Is if I did like wait, it's my effects. Where's the effects at in here? Effects. I could do a video effect, color correction. This isn't the best one, but let's say I did a levels. Like, image control. Let's try that. I put this image control in here, and I started doing my well, this isn't a good example. Where's levels in here? Let me just
I think
search.
it should be under the image tree.
Is it? Yeah, I want to adjust. There we go. So if I get my levels under here and I start like pushing the brightness up, or the start pushing the whites up a little bit. You can't really see it up there. Anyway, you're going to start losing some information in there. It's going to start like getting grainy in areas where it's too dark. But yeah, the Lumetri, whatever presets here are also really, they're probably the best way of doing color correction. But really, the EXRs just give you more control over that because there's more information in that image, and that's something you'll use a lot in lighting and rendering because what we get out of here isn't always the last thing we do to it. We make some changes to it. So that answer the question. Okay. How many of you are feeling a little nervous? All right. What can I do to help with that?
Why did I have several questions? But
Yeah, so you got lots of questions. That's actually pretty much the end of the lecture. So I would like to keep chatting in case there are things I haven't covered. But after that, it's just gonna be the rest of class's work time. So what was your question?
Did you ever go over how to like animate your camera and like go around the scene?
Did I? Yeah, I think I did.
Just use keyframes.
Yeah, I just created some keyframes in there. So basically, you can keyframe it the same way you would in the same way you would animate anything else. So I'll show you again really quickly. I could create camera, go to my new camera, camera 2, right? And in my perspective view, you'll see it's over here. And as I move it around, it sort of changes, right? If I select that camera and click this to select it, I can just hit S, set a keyframe on it, and then change it on frame 200, and hit S again. So now I have to have this viewport selected for it to work. Let's see it like that. What I would say is yeah, check back on yesterday's video, or you can check the videos up on the network to kind of walk through a little slower. Yes.
so is it possible to add like a spotlight on top of the car and be able to group that in with the car, but able to rotate it without rotating the whole object?
To be able to rotate the light up. You want to do like a siren? So, yeah. So you just that would be underneath the like if we parented that underneath our car control, so there was a light parented underneath here, you would just be animating, let's say this was the light, you would just be animating that rotating while this is moving across, right? So it would be rotating as it's traveling with the car. Does that make sense? Other questions?
I mean, there's something on
I
my
just need your help when you're done.
Okay. Yeah, I have a feeling you'll be doing a lot of walking around after this.
Oh yeah.
Okay. If you're feeling nervous about this, don't. Like this, I swear this is like there are 100 students coming through every year, if not more, who get through this class, right? And you're going to get through it too. You just have to kind of fight with some of this stuff. I mean, it isn't easy, but I mean, if it were easy, nobody would pay you to do it, right? So, like, what we're doing is we're getting good at this skill here, and it takes a little effort, but that's why you can brag about it. Is you by the end of this project, you're going to be able to you're going to have created a full animation, right? A full animated scene. So, I'll be around to help you with it. I'll be around tomorrow as well if you want to swing by the office. I'll be around Monday as well. If you have any big issues that you hit, send me an email. I can answer those. Clearly explaining what the problem is really important. I occasionally get an email that like I have no idea how to respond to. It's like, hey Marlo, Maya's broken. I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, Maya's not broken. You hit the wrong button or something. What happened? Explain it so I can help you fix it. If it's hard to, yeah, it may be broken, but explain to me how it's broken. I may be able to help you fix it. Or I may be able to email the correct people who can fix it. The other thing is, like, if you can't explain it, if you're like, Maya's doing something weird, like it was doing back here in the back a minute ago, OBS is a free software package that I'm using to record these classes. Download that, record your screen, or even record it with your phone. Like, just record a video with your phone and send me that so I can see what it's doing or so I can see what the problem is. It always helps the more information I have. But I think that like the best resource you have is actually hanging out in this room with you right now, which is all these other people who are fighting through the same thing you are, right? They're all working on the same project. Hang out with some of them while you're working. Work in this room. Mention the tutor who is here. the tutors should be able to help you answer most of your questions. If you have like, hey, where is the render settings thing again? That's what they're in here for. I don't know their exact hours yet. Once I get those, I'll post those on D2L. But other questions? All right, you got this. I believe in you. I do. I'm not just saying that. I believe in you because I see it happen every semester. You got this. So the rest of the class is yours. You're welcome to hang out in here and work. You're welcome to run and grab lunch. You're welcome to do whatever you want to. But it's all yours. I'm going to stop this video and upload it, and then I may actually run to the boys' room, and then I'll hop around and answer whatever questions I can until I think this class has got another hour or so to go.